What I want is when friends come over and they say, Noelle, I love romances, what do you have to recommend? I can literally go, follow me. You know what I mean? Follow me. I'll show you. I'll show you the way. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If the thumbnail or the title of this video did not convince you, surely the bookshelves before me or behind me will, because today's video is going to be a bookshelf tour. Now, I'm not going to talk through every single book on the shelves. This is more of a grand overview, right? I'm going to talk about how I approached the organization. I'm going to point out a couple of books that I really love. I'm going to show some of the personal touches to these shelves. But in general, I'm just giving like an overview. And then if you would like a more in-depth tour, I could do that. Although I'm hoping this video suffices. I will also say that these shelves are not done. There are a couple of bottom shelves that are not organized yet. So I'm going to save those for an updated tour in the future. But I will be sharing the shelves that are done. And I'm just really excited. These are my bookshelf dreams come true. I really feel like Belle in the opening number of Beauty and the Beast, where she's like swinging around in the library on her little ladder. And although I do not have a ladder, never say never, my friends. Honestly, it would be unnecessary to have a ladder in here, but it would make for a pretty cool shot. You know what I mean? Also, if you haven't seen one of my most recent videos, we did move. We moved like an hour away from where we were, and so it took us a couple months to conceptualize how we wanted the shelves to look. So we took advantage of this cool arch, and we just wanted to feel like a statement of the room. Like when you walk in the house, you're like, God damn, she's a reader! You know what I mean? So that's what we did for these shelves. So before we actually get into each shelf, the way that I approached organizing them this time around was to really focus on genre and to also alphabetize them. I have never alphabetized a shelf in my entire stupid life, and I don't know if I ever will again because it was a bitch and a half to do it. But at the end, I was very satisfied. So I probably will do it again, honestly, with how satisfied I feel. And let me just disclaimer, not every single shelf is alphabetized. Namely, this one right next to me is not alphabetized, but most of them are, which was very hard to do, but I'm very glad I did it. And if you see one out of place, don't mention it, okay? Because right now, I did a flawless job, and I don't need the flaws pointed out, okay? Save it for a future video, not today. Today's about optimism and positivity, okay? Excellent. Okay, so we're gonna start with the longest shelf, the one that goes across the arch. This is just alphabetized fiction. And yes, there are some, like historical fictions, that could be on a historical fiction shelf. But the problem is I don't have enough historical fiction to do that. So I just kind of grouped all of the fiction together that didn't fit on any of these other shelves and just alphabetized them across. I love it. I think it looks amazing. I love that it goes over the arch. I love that it's a long-ass shelf, and I just think it looks really cool. And again, alphabetizing it was so annoying, but I'm very proud of it in the end. So it was worth the labor of love, if you will. Now let's go to this side. I'll show you some of these shelves, and then we'll go over to that side, and I'll show you all of those shelves, but let's do it. Let's do a little bit of an angle change, all right? See you in a second. All right. This next shelf, again, is a little too tall, so let me just insert some B-roll for you. But this is my short story collection and memoir shelf. It's a mix of the two genres. And the reason for this is that the shelf does two things for me in my life. Number one, it shows off a lot of my favorite books, right? We have memoirs like Finding Me and Know My Name. Each book I loved so much for different reasons. They were both so brilliantly written. And then we have some short story collections that I really love, like, let me get one for you, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies. Not only is this one of my favorite short story collections, it's also just one of my favorite books of all time. Peach Cobbler is perfection. give it a read. You won't regret it. But this is like both a shelf that shows off so many of my favorite books, but also gives me a little bit of guilt because there's a lot on this shelf I haven't read that I want to read. But as much as I love short stories and as much as I love memoirs, I find that I always put them to the side, right? I always pick fiction over anything else. And this shelf, I think, does a good job at like, when I see it, I'm like, bitch, there's some books that you need to be reading and they're on that fucking shelf. So anyway, I love this shelf so much. Also on the end, let me grab it for you. By the way, I no longer have a P.O. box. I've gotten some questions asking me about where it is, and I no longer have one. But when I did have one, a subscriber sent me the hands from Pride and Prejudice. Yes, my friends. This is the scene when Darcy helps Lizzie out of the carriage, or sorry, into the carriage. Let's not get things confused. But this is painted on a block of wood, and it is seriously one of the coolest gifts anyone's ever given me. It was such like an act of love, and I cherish it so much. So I think it really complements the wood of the shelves themselves. And I just think it's like super eye-catching, and it obviously has to do with literature, and I just love it so much. Now, let's move on to this shelf. Let me change angles again. Hold on to your hats. All right, this shelf is one of my most aesthetically pleasing shelves. It is my mythology shelf. Not just Greek mythology, just mythology in general. And I love this shelf so much. I didn't realize how much myth I had. And then when I was separating all of these books into different categories, I was like, that is a tall stack, my friends. So I have a little dedicated shelf to mythology. I also have this beautiful candle, and then also this beautiful candle, which is this like veiled woman. And she is definitely leaning against the books because here's what happened. It got far too hot in our last house and she melted. She melted. So her base cracked and now she can't stand on her own. But sometimes you don't have to. In life, I've learned sometimes you gotta lean on someone. And that's what this candle is doing. So that's my mythology shelf. I'd say my favorite books on this shelf are my pocket French editions of The Song of Achilles and Circe. These were gifts from my aunt, and it's just so sweet. And I love that they're like foiled and they're just so cool. No, I can't read a word in French, but it was very thoughtful. And again, I just love this shelf. Okay, this is where the angles get a little weird because you're still seeing this last shelf. But this shelf now is my used pocketbook shelf. Here's the thing about me. Big secret. And when I say it's a big secret, I mean I've talked about this a lot. So bear with me if you're bored of hearing about it. I love used books. Cracked spines, water damage, annotations, dog-eared pages, all of it is my favorite thing in the world. And I especially love it when it's from a book I didn't read myself. When I'm picking up a book like Jurassic Park, I haven't read this book yet, but this book was clearly cherished by someone, right? Someone devoured this book and loved it and cracked the spine. Someone clearly shoved this into a bag or a backpack because of how destroyed the cover is. This was someone's treasure, and now it's in my trove. You know what I mean? It was probably not a good use of that expression, but you know what? You know what I mean? It's just, you feel the love, you feel the history, you feel this shelf itself feels like it's breathing. And that's what I love. So anyway, one other funny book on this shelf. I am terrified of submarines. I've mentioned this before. They are literally my worst nightmare. But another thing is that I'm fascinated by them. I want to know everything about them. I am so intrigued by them. And so I picked up The Hunt for Red October, but I had to cover the submarine on the book itself. So I like taped some cardstock down so I don't have to see it. It's honestly an innocent submarine. It's like a little like cartoon, but I couldn't take any chances. This incredibly cool, hold on, let's not have the books fall. This incredibly cool snow globe. It's of the Golden Gate Bridge, but when you shake it, it fogs up like the fog of San Francisco. Hi, I'm from the Bay Area, and I'd like you all to know that, so I have a snow globe to prove it. Hi, welcome to the worst filming angle, because I am balancing on the balls of my feet for this shot. Anyway, this is my nonfiction shelf. This is my learning shelf. We have books about the Lusitania. Again, submarine fiction. Not even fiction, because that's a nonfiction story. That's real history. But it's called Dead Wake, and it's one of my favorite books. Whether it's that, like learning about a single event in time, or it's learning about anxiety, or it's learning about social issues, social justice, this is my shelf. That is just the learning shelf. You know what I mean? There are books that have been gifted to me. There are books that I have found. There are books that have been recommended to me by therapists. It's my nonfiction shelf, and I'm very proud of this one, although I do need to buy bookends because I can't just make stacks of books like that on all my shelves. So that's that. Now, the bottom two shelves are the disorganized shelves, so I'm not even going to put you through that. Let's move over to the next side. See you in a second. Okay, welcome to the other side of the wall. This next shelf, I'm out of breath from getting this angle right. Anyway, this first shelf right here on this side, again, we have the general fiction up top. Hope you didn't forget already, because if you did, I am not nearly as engaging as I thought I was. Anyway, this next shelf is my romance shelf. And this shelf, to me, really proves how inspired I've been by bookstores. What I want is when friends come over and they say, Noelle, I love romances, what do you have to recommend? I can literally go, follow me. You know what I mean? Follow me. I'll show you. I'll show you the way. So this is my romance shelf. One of my most cherished shelves. It's all my beautiful, beloved romances. I've read most of the books on this shelf, and some of my very favorite books are on this shelf. Not to pull one out at random, but it was book lovers, if you couldn't see it. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if that was in focus. One more thing about this shelf. An incredible subscriber sent me this like a year and a half ago or 2 years. And I have cherished it ever since they sent it to me. These two lovely ladies in their bat wings and their butterfly wings. Oh my God, it's just so cute. It's the cutest thing ever. And they stand, hi, that came apart. Don't worry, it does it all the time, but they're on like a little strawberry base and it's so cute. So let me fix that. All right, next. My mythology shelf is one of the most aesthetically pleasing to look at for me because I love the candles and I just think it like intuitively makes a lot of sense. I just think aesthetically it looks really cool, but this is one of the shelves that draws my eye the most, and I call this my mood board shelf because it's a combination of two types of books. First, it has some of my favorite books of all time. So we have books like The Vanishing Half. We have books like Ready Player One. We have Everything I Never Told You. A Little Life isn't one of my favorite books, but I feel like it defines part of 2020 for me on YouTube because I read the book and I made a video and I think people liked it. I hope you did. Anyway, I put books on this shelf that felt both representative of me as a reader, but then also a lot of books I haven't read yet, but I'm very excited to get to. So it's a little bit of like favorites and immediate TBR. You know what I mean? And I call it a mood board because I want it to be inspiring to look at. I want to see it and to go, oh yes, she has books to read. And that's why I keep it at eye level. I set it up because I was like, I want to be able to see this right away. I want to be walking past the shelves and to go, oh God, you still haven't read Sorrow and Bliss or Our Share of Night. All of these books mean something to me. And I feel like that's me as a reader. We've got some favorites, tried and true favorites, as well as new releases. And I'm not ashamed to say that I'm a new release type of bitch. You know what I mean? I'm influenced by a new release shelf. And I kind of have that now. And I love it. Something to say just from an aesthetic place. This is an ornament that is the pages of The Hobbit folded together. And instead of hanging it on the tree, nay, I keep it on the shelf. So let's hide that little ribbon. And there you have it. All right, so the last shelf you just saw felt representative to me as a reader, right? Like some of my favorite books, but then some books that intrigue me, that interest me, genres that I'm very, very drawn to at all times. So that's just like my reading preference when it comes to reading for pleasure. These two shelves I'm the most proud of because these are the books that I read for school. I'd say 95% of the books on these shelves are ones that I studied for either classes or for my final exam to get my master's degree. So I'm incredibly proud of these shelves because when I look at these books, I remember how hard I fucking studied for that exam and for just general classes. But I also wrote a lot of papers on these books. I read a lot of criticism around these books. I read a lot about each individual author for my exam. So it's like you could almost choose any book off these shelves and I could give you a full lecture on them. I didn't love all of them. I'm going to be honest. I didn't love all of them. In fact, there's a few that I desperately did not like. For example, just calling one out at random, Bleak House by Charles Dickens, not a favorite of mine. Far from it, in fact. Then we have books like North and South, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, two books that I wrote some of my favorite papers about. Hands and Fruit. Hi. So when I look at these, I'm so excited, I'm so inspired, and I'm so proud of myself. Anyway, yeah, just to call out a couple things, because it is a tour, we have all my Penguins classics. Yes, before you ask. I wish it went all the way to the end. I wish. Unfortunately, I don't have enough. Did I consider buying more just for this shelf tour? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm going to let those copies find me in the right moment at the right time, right? Over here, we have a couple of Norton Critical Editions. These are the editions that my professors salivate over. It's an awful way to put that, but these were often not recommended, they were required, right? These were the books that like everyone in class had so that everyone knew where to turn a page to and what quotes people were referencing. But, so I have a soft spot for Norton Critical Editions. They are both annoying because they were required, but then also I spent a lot of time with these editions because of how much my professors loved them and how much my professors had to say about them. So please hold while I shelve that. The last thing I'll say about these shelves, these are Broadview editions. I had one professor who swore by Broadview editions. So I have a lot of them. Number one, they're expensive. Number two, and more importantly, I hate them. I hate them because first of all, they're very slippery. They are like laminated almost, but also you can't crease these spines. And I tried. These books do not want to stay open, and oftentimes I would close them because I didn't want to be reading. And also because if you don't want a cracked spine, then you're flopping closed. And that's on you. That's on you, Broadview. Now we're getting to the final shelf. Let me move you. Okay, now we've reached the final shelf. I feel oddly casual with you right now. Hello. This final shelf I'm going to enter some B-roll of, but this is my thriller, detective, mystery, horror shelf. We have this beautiful edition of The Maltese Falcon. This was also a gift from a subscriber, and it's one of the best and favorite books that I have on my shelf. It is an incredible edition. Like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I cherish it, but hold on, let me fix my shelf for a second. I mean, let me grab one of my favorite books of all time, Sharp Objects. I live and breathe for Gillian Flynn. Absolutely. Gone Girl is one of my most quoted movies, and that might be weird to say, but it's actually absolutely true. I quote that at least once a day. But Sharp Objects was just brilliance personified on the page. So that's one that I loved. Yeah, I'd say that one of my favorite books of this year so far has been A Certain Hunger. This is a brilliant book, and not everyone loves it, and that's okay. I think it is absolutely brilliant. It is both terrifying and also in the style of a memoir from a woman in prison after she has been caught in a murder. So it is so good. It is seriously so good. That's the final shelf. There is another shelf below, but again, disorganized. You keep them at the bottom so that no one really notices. That's a pro tip from yours truly. Anyway, let me pivot you. that is the bookshelf tour, my friends. Those are my books. Those are my shelves. Again, these shelves are a dream come true for me. They are everything I could have ever wanted. And I'm just so happy with them. So once I finish the last few shelves, I'll make sure to share them. Maybe do an updated tour in a couple months once I've added more to them or added lights to them, because right now there is no lighting. But yeah, I just love them so much and I'm very proud of them. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. So love you all. Hope to see you in the next one.